G'day, friends, and welcome back to the show. You may notice that the audio quality is slightly better in this episode, and that's because Genius here actually has the microphone connected. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about our guest for today, Tom Nixon. Tom's a third-generation Hereford breeder who operates Devoncourt Herefords just outside of Drillham on the Darling Downs in Queensland. He's also a director of Herefords Australia, and he's just an extremely passionate cattleman and extremely knowledgeable. So it was a real privilege to sit down with him today and talk about the management practices that has helped them build the reputation that they have over the years. We also touch on his transition to a more regenerative style of grazing and the subdivisions that they've been doing and the rotations that they've been undertaking. So that was great to talk about, but it was fairly heavily focused on the livestock aspect, which is a bit of a contrast to the previous episode with Graham, where we spoke mainly on the landscape. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Feel free to send me a message if you've got any feedback, things you want to hear more of, and any potential guests that you think I should interview. Also, don't forget that there's the Grazing game community, which is free for anyone to join, and just a great place to network and bounce ideas around with different graziers and people in the same space. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Tom, welcome to the Grazing Game podcast.
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, cheers for the invite.
No, not a problem at all. Man, what a year you've had flying the flag for the Hereford breed up at Beef Week. You've won more carcass comp awards than I was able to count. And then you guys have had one of the best annual bull sales you've ever had, clearing 33 or 34 bulls for an average of just under 13 grand. So is the events calendar starting to wind up for the year?
Oh, yeah, I think the events calendar maybe on the cattle side, but I guess we've still got we've got fertility testing on heifers coming up, and EBV scans for all the bulls, and a nearly 600 head AI program. So not completely.
Yeah, the events have slowed down, but the grind never stops. The work just keeps going. Yeah, awesome. So how I thought maybe we could structure this chat is I wanted to recognize that, all of the, accolades that you've received and the reputation that you guys have built over the years, they're all outcomes, and they're kind of just the results of, the consistent and, I guess, correct management practices that you guys have just been, consistently putting in. So what I'd love to do is maybe dig into some of those management decisions and, see how they are yielding the results that you're getting. Does that sound pretty good?
Yeah, no, we can get stuck into that for sure.
Yeah, awesome. So maybe just to set the scene, how many different herds have you guys got running around at the moment between, your stud and commercial operation?
Too many, I think, is the correct answer. Mob size. We're trying to gain mob sizes, but I'm not a fan of running steers and heifers together. So obviously we split them. But yeah, we have sort of 3 or 4 major groups as such. We've got the stud herd, obviously, all runs together. We've got a commercial herd that all runs together here. Then we've got a straight black herd on another property and another straight black herd on another property. And then we've got steers, heifers, and culls and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So just quite a few gone round. Yep.
Yeah.
And so I guess, it'll probably some of the answers will change depending on what mob we're talking about. But
Yeah.
so maybe across the stud herd and well, I guess both the commercial herd as well. When are you joining? And yeah, how long have you settled on now for a join period?
So the entire group, stud commercial, no different. As far as management on joining dates, yeah, we join on the 23rd of November. We AI anything that gets AI'd, which is all the heifers and all the stud, or anything
Yep.
that falls within that grouping on the 23rd of November.
Yep.
And then bulls go out 7 days after that, but all the commercial mobs will get the bulls on the 23rd of November. And then, yeah, we pull them 63 days later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
63 days later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And have you always done a 63-day kind of clean up afterwards, or have you shortened that over the years?
Yeah. Yeah, we did a very severe shortening during the drought. The idea was that we probably needed to sell some anyway, so the easiest way was to see who could suck it up and who couldn't.
Yeah.
And to our surprise, they sucked it up pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some crazy numbers pulling back in. It was quite incredible, really. But yeah, we've had a straight black herd that's been on a 45 to 63 day window for sort of a good while, and then decided that the stud needed to do that as well. Just saw the benefits, and then the complete commercial herd all got done into that about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest benefits that you see? Is it the like uniformity of the calf crop, and that you've got heavier calves if they're all catching at the start?
I mean, obviously the average is going to be better, and I guess we don't have what I would call dinks. Those hairy mongrel calves at the end of the run. We just really got rid of. Yeah, I don't know why that is. Whether that's a seasonal, environmental cow. Did we cull the cows that had those because they fell out, or had a calf that was underweight, or we culled the cow because of it. But just those real dinks have just disappeared, which has been a blessing.
Yeah, yeah, and so you guys, yeah, you didn't really notice a drop in conception rates when you tightened that right up. They handled that pretty well.
Yep. Yeah, no, the conception rate was always pretty good. Obviously, we stretched it out to get more in calf, but that wasn't really the idea. Wasn't to get better conception, but we knew fertility on the cows was pretty good. It was just different droughts, and my how I'd learnt to run things from when I was a kid. I didn't have that selection pressure idea in my head. I was more of the mind that the more cows in calf, the more calves we had. Scenario was in play. So yeah, then yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, we sort of we had a new manager come in, and he had a really good idea on how to do things to make it streamlined, and made my life a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, that's for sure. I was listening to a podcast. I don't know, probably last year, and the guest was a livestock production specialist at a university overseas, and she kind of just casually mentioned, oh yeah, and the biggest influence that we found on weaning weights is date of birth. Above age of dam, and sex, and it was just one of those moments, like it's so obvious, but you just don't really. I didn't really think about it, and obviously that's with nutrition being equal. So I guess if they're all on the exact same diet, then
Yeah,
it just comes down to date of birth. And
yeah,
I always kind of used to think, oh, those stragglers that you're talking about, the dinks at the end. They're just from, poor cows. They're just not doers. But it's like, no, they're bloody 3 months younger than the rest.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah,
that
and I,
that
I do
really,
wonder those calves that that we call dinks, that if they, when we calve from the 1st of September, we haven't had a lot of rain, we haven't had a lot of clover if we happen to get it. But once that cow, hits December and the milk probably enhances quickly, those calves that are born then really have a suffering a period where they've got this onslaught of milk from an early age, where the ones that have born in September are up in a month to a month and a half old, ready to absorb the amount of milk that's about to hit them. And I think that's where the big difference is.
yeah, that's a really good point. Haven't thought about that. Have you guys probably, I'm assuming, would have been really early adopters. You've been doing AI and IVF for a long time as well.
Yeah, so I'm not huge into the IVF job. We have small Brahman herd that we did IVF to begin with, but with the stud, I haven't really dived into the IVF or flushing scenarios. Just purely, I don't know. I don't have. I mean, I have my favourites, but there's so many different factors that come into it, and I think every cow in the place. I'm not sure that the top price bulls ever come out of the same cow ever. So she has good ones up in the top 10 all the time or whatever, but yeah, they're never the best one all the time. So I think the idea is to breed more and make the average better.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think AI for a lot of like commercial producers is a really good tool to be using to introduce those genetics?
I think. Um, oh, I think when you want to build a really good short window, I think it's a great base for heifers. I don't think that cows is a great option. Well, I mean, we do it with the stud, completely different scenario because we're trying to use, bulls that are over $100,000 successfully over as many as we can. I think it's beneficial then, and I think very beneficial to AI heifers. Doesn't matter what operation you run, because you can get 50 to 70% of your heifers to calve within 2 weeks at the very front of the window, which gives you the best head start you could ever get. But yeah, cows, that's a personal preference.
Yeah. What's the thinking on the cows? Why perhaps it might not
Oh,
be.
I mean, it's a lot of mucking around. You've got to do at least three times into the yard. Those calves, you're upsetting the cow, you're upsetting the calf. If you're not doing it professionally all the time, and it's just something you're thinking about doing, you can really stuff up some motherings. Um, and there's obviously a little bit of weight loss that will happen during those periods, depending when it could be. Once you set up a fixed time AI program, there's no going back. Like you're 2 3 weeks into a program and it rains 150 mils, you still got to get them in an AI.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that too much. I AI is something I want to test a little bit of, maybe next year. So I haven't had much to do with it. I guess from initial thoughts, I assumed, heifers being younger might have a slightly poorer conception rate with the AI, but that's a really good point. Um,
They definitely will have a less conception rate.
yeah, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, and then are you monitoring those heifers? If they miss and they cycle again, are you going back to AI? No.
No, no, no. Bulls out straight after. We actually do. We get all of our heifers repro track scored pre AI as well. So we're kicking out anything that's not has lumps, bumps. Is a twin to a bull. You've got And some heifers have just not reached sexual maturity, so that's all measured pre going into a joining and an AI program.
Yep. Cool. Um, those once you're turning bulls out with your stud herd, are you doing single sire joinings?
No, that was that was a decision that had contemplated for a long time, but I don't think there's too many stud herds that do multi-side joining, especially with bulls that are worth. We've got two bulls. We at the moment we're using two bulls that are one's 130 and one's 35,000 in the same paddock, which is a bit scary. You can't bubble wrap them in the paddock. So, but yes, I know I mean, it was, what we saw was our commercial herd was getting 2 to 3% better conception rate. And that annoyed me. So I'm like, the stud cows should be better, like this is we're selling bulls to people. We should be better than our commercial herd. And that wasn't the fact. But the only difference I could see was that we weren't multi-side joining, and I'm like, well, how do we do that and make it profitable to still do it? And I guess we worked out that the extra 2 to 3% actually paid for DNA testing. So that was just a direct cost that we knew if we multi-side joined, we had to DNA test. But how do we make that pay? And it was literally the makeup of that 2 to 3% paid for that cost. But the benefit on the other side of that was we got genomics for EBVs, and accuracy on EBVs went up. And we got all of our pole testing, horn testing stuff back, and all the genetic defects for the breed on that result. So we got so much more from it than we expected just for that. The little bit that we had to cost.
Sounds like a really great management decision in hindsight.
Yeah, definitely.
Were you surprised at once you started doing that parent verification and then comparing how many calves one bull side over the other with did one have a lot better libido and serving capacity than say the other?
It was dramatic. And it wasn't what we expected. Obviously we thought there would be a difference. The literally two ET full brothers run under different circumstances. One was a show bull, one wasn't. One we paid a bunch of money for, one we paid enough for. And when we pulled the bulls the first year, one looked flogged out and one looked fit as a fiddle. And when the DNA tests come back, one had 32 calves to the natural mate and one had 54. And it wasn't the one that looked flogged out that had the 54. Interesting. And that but the first year, so those two bulls went back again this year, and we've got calves hitting the ground now by that same joining, and we'll see. But I don't. I nearly bet the same thing will happen.
Yeah. What's that other bull doing? Just
pampered life. I mean, he's still got 32. They're running in a paddock with about 170 cows that were AI'd. So there's obviously a few things going on there, but who knows what happened that year? Maybe he got a bit crook halfway through the year, and this is the whole reason why we did the multi-side joins. Like when one bull's got an issue, the other bull's picking up the slack, and vice versa. So I think that in itself probably saved our bacon.
Yeah. Then with the natural mating in the all black herd,
yep.
How many bulls would you be turning out to a mob there?
Depending on the mob size, but we're even with the AI, AI doesn't lessen your bull numbers. You've really got to, yeah, forget about the AI because once you've synced those cows, they're going to come on fast. So on that second cycle, so you need full bull power. It's a we're sort of doing a 1 to 30, 1 to 40 ratio, no matter what. We'll even overlap a little bit more than that. If we've got a couple of young bulls, we use some 12, 14-month-old bulls in the commercials as well. We'd like to back up our heifer job with some younger bulls. And there that I think, bull power, sometimes people do an AI program and just go, oh yeah, no, well, it's half the amount. Well, 50% will be in calf. So we only need 50% of the bull power, and I don't think that's a good idea.
Yep, that's a really great piece of advice. I'll note that one down.
Yeah.
So I guess moving through, when are you guys preg testing? How far along?
Yeah, so we want to. I think the idea is to have, because we want to do it as early as possible, but not sort of get rid of anything that's not. So I think we get out to about 16 weeks. We'll be about as far in as calf as we want the mob, and then we do the cut off at 4. So we're literally AIing to make sure our 63 window is intact. 63-day window is intact. So it's usually around sort of end of Feb, March.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And where are those open cows or heifers destined for? Are they got a market for those?
So yeah, we depending on the year, sometimes we will run the bulls a little bit longer, just to get them in calf, and then we'll sell them as a pot load, as an in calf. But we haven't. We did that last year, because we thought the market for cows might be in calf cows might be pretty good, and but previously it's just been make sure they're not in calf, and then get them with enough condition on, and just sell them as an empty.
Yeah. You guys have the ability to, if you want, with forage crops, to get a bit of condition, don't you?
No, we generally just put them out on grass. We're very blessed where we are. The country here is pretty good, so it's fattening country. We probably should be running steers rather than cows, but
Yeah.
that's what we like.
Yeah, definitely. It's what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
So, well, then I guess moving maybe onto that grass base. So for the middle part of that gestation and for the next couple of trimesters, are they just expected to be wintered on your natural pastures? What's the kind of pasture base look like where you guys are?
Yeah, so depending on what property and what part of the property, the whole everything's treated the same, no different. We just rotate cows through their designated areas, which is all pretty native bluegrasses, and then we have some bambatsi that was planted sort of in the last 20 years, 20, 30 years, and there'll be some straight stands of bambatsi, and then we've got like a bit of a smattering of buffle country, which sort of we're not big buffle fans. The But yeah, so it's all sort of pretty, a little bit of improved, and more improved country coming all the time. But it's we've just got into the multi-species grass pastures in the last sort of 10 years. So that every time we do a new pasture, it's all sort of 6, 7, 8 species stuff now.
Yeah. So there can just be a huge variation depending on
Yeah.
which mob they're in, what
Yeah.
block they're on, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get pretty heavy frost there, and does your grass get quite mature and lose its value during winter? And
Yeah.
do you have to feed out a little bit of supplement at any times, or
Yeah. We've actually probably, especially with our growing cattle, steers and heifers, we pretty much feed a top country mineral lick. year round. We just need to make the best out of that as possible. Um, the cows, for the most part, will get. Well, we haven't. What do we? Yeah, we had such a we had such a great run. I don't think we fed cows lick this season, so that was a nice cost diverter. But yeah, so we've just done another order now, so we'll probably start them if it starts to if we don't get a bit of rain, it's going to start to dry off. So we want to maximise those cows with a phos supplement. So yeah, sort of full mineral lick with a phos just helps a bit of milk production and gets them to recycle a lot better.
Yep. Is is your country fairly phosphorus deficient? Have
Yeah,
you have yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yep. Yeah, like most of Australia, I think.
yep, yep,
So then moving on, we've done a preg test and we're wintering those calves. Um, so uh, you're due to start calving start of September
yeah.
or
So we use a lot of short gestation genetics, so we do start about 10 days prior. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
cool, righto. And what is it about September? Why have you lined it up to be then? What is it that you like that fits your context? Is it something in the environment?
simple answer is our bull sale's on the start of September, and our bulls will be 2 year old. That's one reason. But really, the idea is that we've got it's right before that, November rain. Well, hopefully November rain. And we've got those calves on the ground, like I said earlier, that they're not hitting that milk fever straight up. They've got a little bit of age on them, and they're ready to hack that bit of milk. And that's one of the reasons we want them to be calved before the heat of summer, so that we're not, got calves being born out in the middle of the sun. We had an issue a few years back where it was January, we were calving, and yeah, calves were getting cooked just lying on the ground if they were a bit sluggish. That was a particularly hot year, but yeah, it just sort of gave us a wake up call on that scenario. But yeah, there's a few things like that. But then, well, our manager he was big on green days he was did a lot of pasture stuff, and yeah, he had a green day set that's where we wanted to be calving, was as the first green day was, which is usually around September.
Yep.
So that was yeah, because you want your cows are ready to just start being productive, and their rating on how much they're gonna consume goes up as soon as that calf hits the deck. So we want to maximize the potential. So that's when the best feed's on the ground, we want to be eating it.
Yeah, I thought that about your bull sale when I was kind of thinking of that question. I thought, actually, I think his bull sale is in
Yeah,
September, so it's exactly 2 years.
yeah,
um, but the yeah, it seems like that's the constant balance that even like a lot of commercial producers have is everyone wants the heaviest calves at the weaner sale the next year, so everyone wants to calve as early as possible, but then it's just trying to balance that with is there going to be green feed for those wet cows to be,
yeah,
calving onto.
yeah.
Um, yeah, which seems
No,
like a
it's a funny one. I know I talked to someone once. They talk about the heaviest calves are 330 to 350, but they might be $3.90, and the calves that are 280 to 300 are going to be 410. So
yeah,
there's a little bit of a catch up. Just because they're heavier doesn't mean they're going to make as much money. You can probably change the cents per kilo and get that up. So
yeah.
the ones that are born a bit earlier and sold a bit earlier, yeah, there's a million ways to do it, and it just what suit your program.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's exactly right. Um, so then, yeah, so we're carving, and then that cow, she's got maybe 80 days. 80 odd days until she's got to cycle and get back in calf. So her obligations are fairly obvious.
Yeah.
Um, and I know the next question could vary a bit just depending on the seasons, but how long is she expected to carry that calf? Like when are you looking to wean?
Yeah, look, last few years it's been, different years. We've had massive amounts of rain, we've had none. But yeah, 6 months, six to 7 months. But then I know this year we had that much grass here, and we didn't have the ability to buy trade cattle in, so we just dragged calves out to about 9 months. But it was, a lot of the reason was it made the cow still eat more grass, just to try and flog it down a bit. To be honest,
Yep. Eat more.
yeah, eat more.
um,
Not what we usually want, but
yeah, no, that's
it
exactly
needed to
right.
be utilised.
Have you like played around with different ages at weaning? Like, do you notice that leaving them on there for longer helps them develop better, or that there's not really a huge difference if you wean them a few months earlier?
I think it's beneficial to wean at 6 months.
Yep.
I think there's been a little bit of talk that milk actually inhibits the gut health. So once they stop eating milk, they actually start to grow the lining in the gut, and I think they actually can utilize feed better the earlier that happens.
Yeah. Yep. Interesting. Um, and how are you weaning? Have you tried multiple methods over the years, or are you just yard weaning?
Yard wean, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yard wean 3 to 5 days. Yeah, depending on the mobs, and the mob sizes. But yeah, we usually have them in and out and gone. Dog worked with dogs and taught to single wire electric fence, and away they go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, always see those ads, and some people using the weaning rings, and some people,
Yeah,
fence line weaning, and I'm like, it looks a little bit easier, but does it work well?
yeah.
So,
No, I guess it's one of the only inexpenses is, yeah, we buy in a bit of soft hay for them every year to wean. But yeah, no, I think it's so beneficial to make them commingle too for health reasons. They're learning how to cop a bit of immunity with a bit of commingling with a whole heap of different strangers that come together, and it's not under a stressful situation. And I think that sets them up better for hitting a feedlot later on. I think if they're just paddock weaned, they've not got that mentality to mentality as well. They haven't been mobbed and taught how to be a cow, but yeah, that immunity of coming in. You'll see them all get a little. The start of the mob will get a bit of a cough every now and again, but that's it's probably beneficial to them to have got a little bit of that stress and learn from it.
yep, yep. Moving along the breeding calendar. So at branding, are you cutting all of your commercial bull calves?
So for the most part, any of our crossbred Hereford Angus calves are ringed at
Yep,
at about 3 months. We'll bring them through and try to do them at 3 months, because then we can use the sheep rings.
yep,
But yeah, then sort of get that all done and out of the road at about 3 months. We've got a select pure Angus herd that we're using our Faro genetics on. Those bulls stay entire till we do a bit of selection on them at weaning, just for our own in herd. We're just keeping some bulls for our own in herd selection,
yep.
and then yeah, pretty much everything. Yeah, and then the stud completely different. We run every single bull through to 400 days before we do any selection on them, for breed
Yeah,
plan purposes. Yeah.
yeah. Righto. Are there any earlier or initial evaluation times when you see some of those stud bulls and you're like, oh, definitely not taken out to 400, or are they all get the opportunity?
Everything. It's not really about the opportunity. It's about getting correct data for breed plan.
Okay.
Yep. So we want to give the biggest chance to the group to excel against each other. So if we go and take out the wimpy little one at the back, we've really taken out the uh, the difference, which I believe the algorithms for breed plan need some comparison between the best and the worst. So that's where we drive the best comparison if we keep the whole mob together.
Yeah. Okay. How do you find the rings on the sheep rings? Do they work well?
Have done it for, I can't even think, 15, 20 years now, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Righto. So for the following through, maybe we just focus on the bulls for the moment. The bulls from, I guess, both the stud and some of those farrow cattle in the Angus mob. When's the first kind of checkpoint? When do you start doing your evaluation? Is it that 400 days for both?
No, so the stud obviously yes. The Pharaoh bull calves that we'll do a first selection on them at weaning, just to see. We want to weigh them, do their sort of 200-day weights. Um, we select anything that has a scur or a temperament issue or structural issue, and then we sort of whittle them down to a reasonable number that we want to bother taking through. This year, I think, or last year, I think we kept 8, and this year we've kept 15 out of that mob. So yeah, so we just want to keep the top end just to see what they turn out like, and we'll do the same process with them at 400 days. We'll fully scan them. We're actually moving to DNA verification for those as well. So I, just, I'm addicted to data. So anything we can stick to them, we'll stick to them. Hopefully, once we get down the line, we'll get full parent verification on those as well. So not just Cyvero. But it's so moving to that side of things for them, just because I wouldn't go and buy a bull these days without having some verification on what they are, and I think it's not Angus Select, but there's some, there's a couple of different programs out there with Neogen and what's it, IGS and Angus. Yeah, well, I think there's one within the Australian Angus Society. So we haven't figured out which one we want to go with yet. We just want the best outcome for a completely commercial animal. We're not trying to be a stud. We just want to select the right animals for us.
Yep. Yep. The is there on the stud side anything that's really done like around weaning, or because you got to keep them for 400 days, you kind of wait a bit longer for the studs? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just purely data driven. We're just trying to not take anything from the mob. There's obviously cattle die, so you've got a couple that fall out from those things, or the 100 young bulls running together. Someone gets ridden, so there's those ones that get pulled out. But yeah, for the most part, she's a straight run. All the bulls, Angus bulls, Hereford bulls all run together, so they go straight onto an oats crop after weaning if we've got one, and then they're literally still on that now. We'll scan next week, so then we'll make some heavy selections on them.
Okay. Cool. Righto. Well, maybe while we're on it, what are some of the traits or characteristics that you're looking for with the type of animal that you guys have been successfully producing over the years, and you found works?
First off, I mean, just structural correctness.
Yeah,
We've just got to make sure they're structurally correct. I see far too many bulls in the industry that are just not structurally correct. We love big, long cattle. Well, I shouldn't say big. We like long, stretched out. I just reckon what was the old man used to say, and I've heard it a million times. Is it's length that weighs and length that pays. So um,
nice,
that's always been a big one for us. We want that hip to pin length. We want that stretch of neck, and and then that head carriage is everything's got to be structurally correct down to the ground. Feet have got to be perfect. It's a there's a big part of that. Head structure's got to be there. Big muzzles and hair type. We like slick. We like slick coated. So which is not something a lot of people sort of put to Hereford, but when you've bred them in Queensland this long, they've got to be slick. Um, yeah, so it's and we do like our big, deep red coloured ones. I think I don't think the colour of them makes them taste any better, but it is a preference. I don't know why, but we do really push for the pigment around the eyes as big as we can get it. We've got so that's just been something that we chase every year. I think I'd only, out of what we'll have about 190 calves on the ground this year, I'd say there'd be about 5 that wouldn't have a full 100% pigmentation. So yeah, it's
yep.
something chased for a long time.
Is that pigmentation? Do they run into issues if they don't have it? Is that a
It's God knows whether it's wives' tales or just old farmer chat, but it's I think there's been studies on it. There's a 5% reduction possibility with the cancer eye. Just purely glare from the sun up here on a pink skin shining back into their eye apparently is a thing. Obviously, the best way to get rid of that is cull the cows that have it and cull their daughters like we do. So yeah, selection pressure on it is massive. Well, I don't know whether we'll ever be able to say we've never got it, and anyone who says they don't is a liar, or they don't keep their cows old enough.
Yep.
But yeah, look, it's a thing, and we know we've got to work on it all the time. But yeah, that's one way of doing it, is making sure that we breed those cattle with a good, like I had said before, head structure. We want to make sure their eyes are covered with that hooding across the top.
Yep.
That's just a sun visor, and put that colouring around there helps double that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the type of animal you're looking for, something that's functional,
Yeah.
that can work in your environment. But as you said, you're obsessed with data, so you do quite a bit of that of EBV recording and
Yeah.
things like that. Is that right?
Yeah. So I guess we only really got stuck into the EBV side of things about 5 years ago for the data collection side. Well, it might have been more like 8 years ago. Um, but I in 2016 I went and paid $95,000 for a bull, and to warrant doing that, there had to be a lot of changes. We needed to, obviously we wanted to sort of make our mark and say that that was sort of the turning point. It was like, right, we need to turn things up and really turn this business into something worthy of spending that sort of money on a bull. So yeah, breed plan was, I think, as far as a tool goes, it's what we have. I think it's as good as we're going to get at this point. So we have to be on board, and we have to be the best at it. And if we're not, we're lying to our customers. And don't get me wrong, I don't really care what the numbers are that are put on the piece of paper. To a point, I want them to be above average. I don't want to be the number one, top 1%er of everything, or definitely not one trait. But I just want to make sure that everything that we collect is true and correct, and it's put on and it's entered for every single animal possible. Because at the end of the day, at least we've entered it, and whatever comes up on the piece of paper after that is up to the customer to buy.
Yeah, it's all there. You're
Yeah,
putting the honest information in front of people.
yeah,
Does and like I'm not familiar with breed plan at all, but can you like is it just a tool that it's useful for whatever traits are important to you? Like you can
yeah,
just come up with the traits
yeah.
and yeah, okay.
Any single trait selection, worst idea in the world.
Yeah, that's interesting. And while I think of it too, it seems like even looking at the Herefords you've got behind you, the Herefords that you guys are breeding still look really similar to like even I've got this old poster behind me of these like British cattle from the 1800s or something, and they were all like a lot more rectangular and deep bodied and squared, and
Yeah.
you just don't seem to see that very much anymore, do you? They've all become quite shallow.
Yeah, I guess I mean, it's a the whole. Well, I think the whole country, well, the whole world changed there in the mid 70s, and I think trends are something people love chasing because it's the next big thing, and they think that they're going to make $1 million off it. And I know the 70s, everyone, well, 60s, the 60s, they had belt buckle cattle, and they were these little tiny miniatures, and then they went, oh no, the next big thing is to make them look like elephants and string out, and they sucked their guts in, and oh, it was horrible. But we all did it, and our family was probably no different. But yeah, went through that era of the 70s where they bought all the genetics out of the US, and um, I think consistency. I saw when I was young that we use these beautiful, what I called Australian bred genetics, which was all English, and they just good styles of cows, deep bodied, and we use these great big bulls over them, and we ended up with a lot of inconsistent steer runs because we get these huge, big, leggy steers that were run out that took, 2.5 years to sell. And then we'd have the little ones that were, ready to go at 12 to 18 months, and very inconsistent. And I think that's possibly where I got a lot of my ideas for with what we do now is everything in little increments instead of trying to blow the doors off every time. That little increments are a far safer way of getting somewhere, and you can keep your herd so much more consistent.
Yeah. Yep. Have you, and this can apply, well, it probably applies more to the breeders and females, but it can cross over with the bulls. Have you noticed, like, with you just touching on bringing over those American genetics, that in your herd you've found kind of an ideal frame size, or you've noticed a correlation between, say, frame size and productivity?
I think that we didn't have to worry about frame size. Our management system worked it out. Yeah, pretty much. I think, yeah, I don't, I just, yeah, that's probably been a big one for me is one day I got sat down because I used to love my big old horn Hereford cows, and we sat down one day. We pulled up because we have the luxury of the stud with percentage of weaning weight, and we did a list, and we did it from top to bottom, from the oldest cow to the youngest, and we did it from the heaviest weight cow to the littlest, and it was very upsetting at the time. But my beautiful big old cows had the worst weaning weight percentage you'd ever seen in your life. And my little dinky ass cows that, were frame 4.5 had the best weaning weight percentage we'd ever seen in our lives. It was like up around 60%. and the big old girls that had the high price bulls were around 40%.
Oh
So
man.
that was an eye opener. And I made excuses and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, I think there's a, I think there's a happy medium in the middle somewhere. And I don't think we want 400 kilo cows, but we definitely don't need 900, or it's just they eat far too much and they don't produce what they need to.
Yeah.
So it was a very scary graph, and if you ever want to do it to yourself, I recommend it.
Well, that's oh, that's great. That's really cool that you had the data to go back and check that.
Yeah,
The so maybe that leads into to I do want to touch on the Pharaoh cattle, and I mean people listening to the podcast lately probably thinking that I'm just chasing people who've got Pharaoh cattle, but it literally just so happens that the people that are doing this style of grazing, like more intensively managed, reducing the inputs, they are looking at these kind of traits in animals.
yeah,
But yeah, I guess maybe we could touch on the Pharaoh cattle, because they are slightly more moderate framed.
yeah.
But as you said, we don't want dinky cattle. So do you think that balancing that size with commercial viability is a big thing to consider?
Uh, Look, we've got a lot more data to collect on that side, but look, I can't fault them. I'll tell you the story. We went to the first sale at Inverell, um, and uh, it was an oh yeah, it was interesting. We walked in and just went, "What the hell have we just walked into?" The cattle are up to friggin' not even up to your waist, and this is a bull sale, and we literally, I said to our manager, I said, you know, I said, I think we should walk back out to the car park and then come back in because I think we're gonna have to this is too weird. Because you're used to walking in seeing bulls that are 2 year old and absolutely, outperformance each other everywhere. And yeah, so we went back out and had 5 minutes in the car park, turned around and came back in, and we were fine. Like you had to take them as they were, but the initial shock, you just had to walk away and go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah.
they're just
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, it's definitely that's my cup of tea. I think most producers or a lot of people who want to go to that moderate frame are coming from the bigger cattle to
yeah,
wanting to come down. I like them smaller, but I've got to convince myself to bring them up a bit more just to
yeah,
be, I think, a little bit more commercially viable.
yeah,
So yeah, so you've introduced some Pharaoh genetics.
yeah. I think we bought out of the first 3 or 4 sales, we bought the top price bull there every year.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Do you notice they're a lot more easy fleshing than do you have some Hereford bulls that are a bit bigger? Because I know
Oh,
we've spoken before, and the
yeah.
I think the issue you were running into was that they were getting too fat too quick, that there wasn't really room for the feedlots to.
Well, that's only as an assumption of where we think is possible because they do well. The bulls are hardy and they've definitely stood the test of time in the paddocks. They come back in and they look fit most of the as good if not better than anything else. Obviously, they're that bit smaller frame, but in saying that, the couple of big bulls we've got are still over 900 kilos in the paddock. So they're not little. They're
No.
just they're voluminous.
Yep.
Yeah.
No. Awesome. So I do want to touch on the grazing, and
Yep.
so maybe we transition over there. Is there anything else you think maybe just on the cattle that would be worth mentioning, that you think people would benefit from?
Oh, I was only going off what you and I talked about the other day was where people buy bulls and you're thinking about the Faro scenario. I think the big misconception of people's bull buying is flashy catalogs and things like that. I think you just got to find the program that's you obviously like what the furrow situation is, where how they run their cattle. I think you find the stud operation that actually runs the cattle in a program like you want to, or like you do, and situate how you do your things. And I think that's always the best fit, because their cattle are probably going to be the same, have the same production values. So yeah, I think that's a big thing. Just EBVs alone aren't the answer. I think you need to actually find something that aligns with what you're doing, and I think that was one of the big reasons we went down the road we went down, was because we wanted to make our cattle. I've heard plenty of people say, "Oh, our studs run just like a commercial herd," but they don't own a commercial herd, so I don't know how they know. But start putting your money where your mouth is, and joining multi-side mobs, and doing rotations, and actually doing 63-day windows and stuff like that. I think that's the road we had to go down, and then we wanted to back those numbers up with EBVs and things like that. But yeah, I think if you find the operation, doesn't matter what breed it is. I think you can find someone that's doing what you expect them to do, and can follow that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great tip. There's no point going and purchasing an animal who's in good body condition, but it didn't get that body condition from the way that you're hoping to put it on, with
Yeah,
low quality tropical grasses, or wherever it is you are.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So then maybe just quickly touching on the grazing aspect, I guess. I know that you've split up some paddocks, so maybe how many did you start? Sorry, how many did you start with? How
Ooh.
many have you got now? And yeah, what does that kind of look like?
Oh, I can't even remember how many we started with, but it was most of our paddocks got split into four. I think there's only one place that's not been split yet, but everything else has. There's 109 paddocks here now, over five places. Um, and I think our biggest the first one we did it with was 1,000 acre paddock, and we used to run about 80 cows in there. It was pretty run down. We did our first stage of water infrastructure out to it. We put two troughs and split it into 8 paddocks. But before that, we completely renovated it with a horse tiger. We chewed it completely out with cattle first, and then ploughed it with a 3-in-1 plough, the horse tiger, and replanted that back to an 8 species multi-species pasture. But that was a bit of it was like a huge gamble. It was like 2019. Drought was, fairly well had the grips. We were still going okay. It was tight. And we just went, no, look, if this ever breaks, we need this paddock's done. We need to change it up. So yeah, we ripped it and got it all prepped. And the day before we went to plant, it freaking rained, and we planted, and it rained, 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 and it rained for 2 or 3 years. We look like geniuses. We're not, just fluke, absolute fluke. But yeah, it turned one paddock into, oh god, I'd hate to think how many more cattle it runs now. It's just stupid. We ran 700 bullocks through there, or steer, heavy steers through there for nearly a month, and I think the carrying capacity, if it hasn't tripled, it's probably more.
Yeah.
Um, But and then you got the benefit of desmanthus and chicories and clovers and bambatsy and different sorts of different couple of different medics, and yeah, no, it's a game changer.
Yep. And is that on a bit of a wagon wheel type setup where you have a water center and then you've got paddocks going around that? Or yeah.
Yeah, so it's a big long paddock. So we literally just send a wire straight down the middle of it, lengthwise, and then two water cells that just evenly spaced. I think they're 50 hectares pretty much. Um, yeah, so just space it out evenly so we can go up one side, back down the other, and then move them through to the next paddocks, or we set the rotation that we send them around there, that they come, because we only put steers out there more than anything, because that's the best feed we've got for growth. So they'll do a rotation through there and then come back through the yards to get weighed. Um, Depending on whether literally, I think end of this month they'll be ready to come through for a weigh.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, well, it sounds you kind of answered the question, but the time that you spend on going out and rotating cattle um, definitely pays for itself in the increase in stocking rate that you guys have been able to increase over the years.
Yeah, I think I mean, purely just what I said then was we don't have to muster anymore, because we just set the rotation, so when we want to weigh, we just have the rotation set to be at the closest paddock to the yards. And a 50 hectare paddock, open the gate and they all walk in, they all come in, get weighed, and they go back out again. So we don't have that half a day walk back to the main set of yards to get weighed. They're literally sitting in the paddock next door. And when we let them out of the yard, we don't have to walk them back, because they just go into the paddock on the other side to go back. So they've got there's less distance walking all the time. Like we could spend 3 days getting them from the from the back of this block all the way to the front. But when we've got it set up like a graze move, it's just every it could be if anywhere from a couple of days to 12 days, where they're in the one place. But yeah, depending on how we want to get them back to the yards, it's just a gradual move every few days, instead of one big one all in one go.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, it certainly makes handling a lot easier. So even going back to the first question, I mean, the events that you have been going to this year, like you're very heavily involved in the industry. You're very passionate, obviously, about Herefords. Why do you think passion's so important for for anyone getting started in the livestock game?
Oh, it's I think it's a yeah, and I don't know where passion comes from, because it's some people get it later in life, some people get it when they're two or three. Like I know myself, have probably had it since I saw my first one. But the yeah, it's one of those things that it just drives you, and it makes you get out of bed in the morning. Because if you don't, if you're passionate about it, it's not work. So the and it just it when even if you're passionate about it, and it's not profitable, you'll find a way to make it profitable. And I think that's definitely the way it's been. I know there's and I think some adversity, like something you like, if you have some adversity with it, it makes you friggin' more passionate about it.
Yeah,
It drives that, because if you love it, you just love it, and
yep,
you just want to make it work. So anything that makes it tougher on you makes you want it even more. So
yep. That's so true. No, that's a great way to put it. Where can people find you, Tom, if they're interested in, what you're doing, they want to follow along, if they're interested in genetics, anything like that?
yeah, most places. I seem to never be at home. So the this year I lived out of a port, I'm pretty sure. But no, we've got a really really handy website. We've got our Instagram and Facebook pages. Check them out, and yeah, email, phone, all those things are readily available to find if anyone ever wants to have a chat and talk turkey. It's fine.
Yep. And that's all Devoncourt Herefords.
Yep.
That's where everyone needs to be. That's what you need to be putting in. No, awesome. Thanks so much for sitting down and taking the time to talk to me, Tom.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.